Yep, you guessed it. It's time for your rotten theology lesson.
Howard's story was just beginning. He was about to embark on what is commonly referred to as a near-death experience. Thousands of people have described such episodes as warm and comforting, even heavenly. Howard Storm, on the other hand, believes his near-death experience took him straight to the depths of hell. What makes his story even more remarkable is that at the time Howard was an avowed atheist who believed in nothing. Not God, not heaven, and certainly not hell.
And in that complete despair and pain and hopelessness, a small light appeared and got brighter and brighter and brighter. And I felt this brightness reach down and pick me up, and I was like all healed and whole and full of the most wonderful physical ecstasy. And he called a number of angels around us, and they showed me the effects that I had on other people, how it hurt other people. And I think to myself, I'm scum. I don't belong here. They've made a mistake. And then for the first time, he spoke to me and said, we don't make mistakes. You do belong here.
Howard Storm's journey to the other side was over. He says a mysterious figure instructed him to return to earth and live with love in his heart.
When I asked all the questions that I could think of to ask, even making up questions just to perpetuate the fun of being with Jesus and these people, because it was like wonderful. I'm getting all this attention, I'm getting all this information, and I've retained all that that whole thing.
The most stressing thing to me,
I just saw anything. I have no idea.
No other winner has revolutionary club.
attacking the validity of this NDE with a milk and water pablum. Useless questions he asked Jesus. He did not ask Jesus any real questions, which, if this Jesus would have answered, would have demonstrated that this Jesus was not a simple fabrication of his own mind. Why didn't he ask Jesus, who was the Zodiac? Who is the Zodiac killer? Who is the Jack the Ripper? What's the mystery behind the Bermuda Triangle? What causes spontaneous human combustion? What happened to the lost colony? Now, if he had asked his Jesus questions like this and gotten viable answers that could later be demonstrated to be correct, then I would know he had spoken to someone beyond the fabrications of even the deepest part of his subconscious. They say the human mind is more vast than this universe. So the mind is capable of producing visions and meetings with Jesus, Muhammad, God, that seem so real. But deep down the mind, and deep down beneath the subconscious, the mind knows that it fabricated these experiences. Hence, Howard Storm says, it became an obsession with me to wonder whether my experience with Jesus and his angels was real, or the product brought on by the trauma of a dying brain. Deep down inside, he knows this bullshit. He just don't know it. You get the fucking picture. You know, why didn't Howard Storm interact? He said in a video, he was asking him every question he could think of.
When I asked all the questions that I could think of to ask, even making up questions just to perpetuate the fun of being with Jesus and these people, because it was like wonderful. I'm getting all this attention, I'm getting all this information, and I've retained all that that whole thing.
Perhaps really offensive to me, Howard Storm, when I emailed your howardstorm.com website and asked you, why didn't you ask questions like who was Jack the Ripper? You never, ever. I asked you twice. I emailed you twice. You never ever responded. He responded to my other questions on your website. What, did I hit a raw nerve? You can't fabricate an answer to satisfy me when I start asking real questions that hit home, that drive like a stake to the core of your experience? Huh? Why in the fuck didn't you ask Jesus any real questions that would have demonstrated that this was not, you were not forming answers out of your subconscious mind, that you were actually getting answers from a consciousness outside of your consciousness? I'm pissed off because I so badly want to believe your story. I'm in your corner, Howard Storm, but you got to show me something real. I demand something real before I commit my life and everything I am to it. I'm not going to commit myself to something that isn't real. Fuck that. Right now, the realest thing I know is what I want, what I love, my dreams. What I want to love people. So long as in loving people, I love myself. And until I see something real, I will not change, you motherfucker. Why? Howard Storm, believe it or not, I want your experience to be true more than anything. But you gotta show me something real. And the fact that you say that it became an obsession with you to wonder whether your experience with Jesus and his angels was real, that raises 3 red flags right there. Because let's face it, when a person gets saved, born again, he knows it deep in the innermost core of his being. There may be moments when that try make him doubt it, but this thing deep within persists, will not leave him alone. Even if he backslides and wants to believe there is no Jesus, deep down he knows it, and there is nothing that he can do to convince him that, no matter how hard he might try to convince himself that the inner reality that there is a Jesus, there's nothing that can make him believe that it's not true anymore. Because he has been born again in the spirit, in the innermost core of his being. Howard Storm, did your NDE touch the deepest core of your being? I'm not talking about just your soul. Did it touch your spirit, the core of your being? Let me tell you something, motherfucker. If I ever have an NDE, now I'm given a chance to ask any question I could think of. And you said you asked questions until you were exhausted, couldn't think of anything else to ask. You mean you never once heard about the Zodiac Killer and about Jack the Ripper and wondered who it was? You never once wondered that? Look, Bubs, if I get the chance to ask Jesus anything I want, if he sends me back, there's going to be a cure for AIDS. There's going to be a cure for cancer. There's going to be a cure for that fatality familial syndrome, mad cow disease. It's going to be an alternative source for fuel, so that we don't have to depend on these gas nations. And I will come back with knowledge that will demonstrate that I have truly been in the presence of God, as opposed to just having had the deepest layers of my consciousness take control and fool me in thinking I was having a spiritual experience, because the mind cannot comprehend the terror of final annihilation when it dies, so it has to fabricate a beautiful heaven so it can ease the mind into the final oblivion of death. It's all starting to make sense to me now, Howard Storm. We spit. Perhaps the biggest red flag is when you say, in more than one place, when you doubted whether your experience with Jesus and his angels was real or brought on by the trauma of a dying mind. Interestingly enough, you never once questioned whether your experience in hell was real or not. In fact, you don't even like to think about it because it totally traumatizes you. So I think you got a hold of a counterfeit Christ. Another video on that. Ye shall know them by their fruits, Jesus said. Do men gather the grapes of figs or figs of thistles or something like that? Every time I have called you looking for a tiny little blueberry, it was like walking through a briar patch filled with thorn bushes. So by your fruits, Howard Storm, you are a false prophet. You are a false teacher. And if any Christian with half a theological, half a knowledge of the Bible reads your book, must come to the conclusion that, hey, something's fucked up here. This book and the Bible do not go together like pieces of a puzzle.
I know that there is an interest in God in everyone, even if they say they don't believe in God.
Even with you?
Yeah.
Before the event?
And there's a battle going on, raging on inside of them. But I want to say something that in response to this. Remember, don't believe you, don't believe Don, don't believe me, don't believe TBN, don't believe the church. Go to the source. If you go to the source, if you say, Jesus, I need you. I've never believed in you and I don't know if you're real, but Jesus, I need to know if you're real. Will you come into my life? If you do that, and if you mean it from your heart, and if you sit there and wait, and don't get all frustrated and get impatient and stuff like that, but just say, Jesus, Jesus, please come into my life. I've been a rotten person. And I don't know why you touch a piece of filth like me, but please, Jesus, come into my life. Which is what I did. He will come. Yes. You know, it may not be.
Look, Howard Storm, I don't give a good goddamn how many other people you show love to. That gangster who you flew down to meet him to help him with his dying mother. Working in the soup kitchen, showing love to the homeless. I can only judge you by the love you show or do not show to me. As far as I'm concerned, Howard Storm, you have turned me off. You have made me turn my back on God and Jesus. How does it feel, hypocrite? You have filled me with hate, because I so badly wanted to believe in that your God and Jesus was the real Jesus. What's the alternative? This? If this is how God and Jesus is, I'm turning my back on him. Hopefully I can come back right before I die and go to heaven because I don't want to go to hell. But me, give up what I love for a God like this? Fuck that, and fuck this God too. And fuck you three. Howard Storm, interestingly enough, in Proverbs 14:12, it says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Even in laughter, the heart is sorrowful." That means, even in your joy, when you're loving others, thinking you're doing service to Jesus Christ, there is a disquietedness in your spirit, wondering, hey, I've heard other theologians, and they say stuff that is frightening, that is not like the Jesus I met in my NDE. How do I know that I didn't meet that the Jesus in my NDE wasn't the product of my dying mind, and that these theologians, how do I know that they're not spot on, and that I have been slipped a counterfeit, and that when I die, I'm going to find out I was wrong? Is that why every time, without fail, I've emailed you asking you when you had a chance to ask Jesus every question you could think of? I asked, why didn't you ask him any real questions? Is that right? Why you don't answer him? Because it touches a nerve in you. Because you knew better than to ask him questions like, what happened to the lost colony? Who was Jack the Ripper? Who was the Zodiac killer? You knew better than to ask him questions like that, because the part of your mind that was fabricating this experience wouldn't let you. It filtered up a fear of asking such questions, of such presumptuous questions, because your subconscious knew it could not come up with a satisfactory answer to such questions as this. In closing, Howard Storm, I'm having a migraine aura, so my vision ain't worth a shit. Temporarily. Your subconscious and conscious level. Death. You cannot. Nobody can comprehend the final annihilation at death. And human beings are hardwired from the core of their being, in their assembly language, computer chip level of existence, consciousness, whatever, is wired to preserve the life of the organism as long as possible. And when you're dying, this computer chip mentality, the zeros and ones that make up you as a person, that govern the rules by which your consciousness and subconsciousness, that actually create your subconscious and conscious level, created your conscious and subconscious levels in such a way to deny, to fight death to the very bitter end, even if there has to be some deception in it. But the knowledge in your assembly language mentality coming up into your subconscious levels is what causes your doubts as to whether you experienced this conversation with Jesus or whether it was a fabrication. Because if it was something from another consciousness outside of your consciousness interacting with your consciousness,
it kept you from asking such questions.
You know it. You would have no doubt whatsoever.
To give you a satisfactory answers to such questions. So,
And
in order to maintain the deception,
the fact that you did not, you said
to successfully
you want to ask Jesus every question you keep asking him to prolong
and your subconscious mind,
your conversation with him as long as possible, and yet you did not ask any real questions. This is because your zeros and ones,
fabricated the experience.
assembly language, consciousness level,
Conscious and subconscious
knew
mind did not know. But this knowledge
that it
slowly
didn't know
built up
the
into
answers.
subconscious, which
Human consciousness, there
become an obsession with you.
in human consciousness, we know math.
Angels.
In the subconscious level, everybody could do complex calculus equations.
Am I hitting the wrong nerve?
It's just that the conscious level cannot utilize it, open up enough windows from the subconscious to figure out how to do it. But even our deepest consciousness don't know the answers to some questions. And these are the questions that you did not ask Jesus. Howard Storm, I'm angry at you. I'm angry that you didn't ask Jesus any real questions. I'm fucking angry at you. I'm fucking pissed off at you.
If you're really making sense,